Every new certified fresh film is compiled into one list by Rotten Tomatoes, resulting in our guide to the top movies of 2021. There are blockbusters, Shang-Chi, documentaries, Lily Topples the World, award candidates, The Green Knight, and horror, its most cutting edge, The Night House. After a certain number of reviews, a movie earns certified fresh status if it maintains a tomato meter score of at least 75%, with the amount varying based on how the film was released. The minimum number of reviews required for wide releases is 80. That number is 40 in the case of streaming or limited release films. Finally, there are 20 film reviews for television premieres. Each film must have at least 5 reviews published by top critics, regardless of distribution type. Only by dipping below 70% can a film lose its certified fresh status. Here, at Top Everything, we always give you authentic information, so these movies are ranked top 7 by the Tomato Meter. Number 7. Pig. Pig stars the very handsome Nicolas Cage as a recluse truffle hunter who returns to Portland in search of his kidnapped pig. And while the plot promises a John Wick-style rescue vengeance epic, director Michael Sarnowski's feature debut is significantly more quiet and mournful. Cage's Robin, a tattered guy living an isolated rustic life, teams up with his smarmy customer Amir, Alex Wolff, to reclaim his beloved swine, setting off on a mission that invariably leads him back to the modern corners of the world he had long ago left behind. Sarnowski and Vanessa Block's script in the process shows itself to be a meditation on the finality of loss and the impossibility to avoid the sorrow that it inevitably brings. Here's a fun fact. It's a film marked by formal grace. Sarnowski uses doorway-framed compositions to haunting effect, and a masterful Cage performance of roiling inner turmoil, trauma, and heartache. It's a quiet lament, as well as a poignant paean to the transcendent power of food and art, not to mention the solace that comes from focusing on what really matters. Number 6. St. Maud. As writer-director Rose Glass's feature debut demonstrates, hell hath no fury like a religious zealot scorned. Maud, Morfydd Clark, becomes convinced that her mission from God, with whom she speaks and feels inside her body, is to save the soul of her terminally ill new patient, famous dancer Amanda, Jennifer L. Maud is possessed by a mania impervious to reason and inflamed by both the slights she receives from Amanda and others, as well as her own mortal failings. What begins as a noble attempt to share pious belief and provide comfort for the sick quickly turns deranged, as Maud is possessed by a mania impervious to reason and inflamed by both the slight she receives from Amanda and others and by her own mortal failings. The sacred and profane are entwined within this young woman, who Clark portrays with a terrifying intensity that matches Glass's unnerving aesthetics, which includes topsy-turvy visuals and throbbing, crashing orchestral strings. It's a nerve-wracking thriller that doubles as a stinging critique, highlighted by a scorching final edit that won't be forgotten anytime soon. Number 5. In the Earth. In the Earth is a captivating supernatural thriller suitable for our pandemic-racked times, and it's a spiritual companion piece to Ben Wheatley's 2013 psychotronic freakout A Field in England, not to mention Alex Garland's Annihilation. In a world where a viral outbreak necessitates quarantine zones and sanitary measures, researcher Martin, Joel Fry, is taken into a forbidden forest by a park warden, Alma, Elora Torchia, in order to see scientist Olivia, Haley Squires. A run-in with a dangerous hermit, Reese Shearsmith, with ulterior purposes complicates the journey, as do primeval powers radiating from a massive stone monolith with a hole near its apex, which may be linked to an old god known as Parnag Feg. Wheatley's direction proves oppressive and hypnotic, whiplashing between ominous quiet and hallucinogenic craziness, aided by a soundscape of eerie electronic tones, unnatural bird squawking, and heavy breathing. It's a story about nature's inexorable, inhuman power and mankind's powerlessness in the face of it, that delves directly into modern-day fears about illness, isolation, and insecurity. Number 4. Riders of Justice. Following the death of his wife in a train accident, atheist soldier Marcus Mads Mikkelsen is informed by Otto, Nikolai Lai Koss, a statistical analyst who survived the crash and believes he can predict the future through math, that the tragedy was not an accident, but rather a hit carried out by a biker gang known as the Riders of Justice, who wanted to take out a snitch. The ensuing story is a mix of things, a violent revenge saga in which Marcus, Otto, and Otto's weirdo friends Leonard, Lars Bergman, and Amanthalar, Nicholas Bro, plot to kill the Riders, a drama in which Marcus and his teen daughter Mathilda, Andrea Heike Gadeberg, try to come to terms with senseless tragedy and mending their own damaged relationship while creating a new surrogate. Anders Thomas Jensen's picture deftly spans both genres, pulling humor and sorrow from its motley cast of characters' attempts to overcome regret, find peace, and form familial relationships. It has precisely the perfect oddball moving tone thanks to Mikkelson's excellent performance, which is both deadpan and deadly serious. Number 3. No Sudden Move. No Sudden Move is another feather in the director's genre filmmaking crown. Steven Soderbergh is the modern maestro of ensemble crime pictures, and No Sudden Move is another feather in his genre filmmaking cap. Kurt, Don Cheadle, and Ronald, Benicio del Toro, are recruited to babysit the family of an accountant, David Harbour, who has a document sought after by their hidden employer in 1954 Detroit. When Kurt and Ronald's third collaborator, Charlie, Kieran Culkin, proves to be less than trustworthy, their scheme goes awry, and they find themselves scrambling to preserve their lives while still fattening their wallets. Soderbergh expertly handles the ins and outs of Ed Solomon's tight script, which integrates racial and socioeconomic concerns into its caper narrative with a light, humorous touch. Alternating between elastic panoramas and intense close-ups, both of which often boast canted angles for an even greater noir feel, Soderbergh expertly handles the ins and outs of Ed Solomon's tight script, which integrates racial and socioeconomic concerns into its cap. It's a twisty turn affair starring Jon Hamm, Ray Liotta, Julia Fox, Amy Simons, Brendan Fraser, and Matt Damon. And it's a thrilling reaffirmation that there's no honor among thieves, that greed is the engine that drives the world, and that corporate America is the most well-oiled criminal machine on the planet. Number 2. Identifying Features. In Identifying Features, a superb Mexican drama of loss, remorse, and dislocation, filmmaker Fernanda Valdez characters are alone and desolate. Magdalena Mercedes Hernandez, a single mother obsessed with finding her son who has gone missing while attempting to cross the Mexican-American border, embarks on an investigative journey through a dusty, dangerous country filled with migrant shelters, remote gas stations, vacant homes, and wide-open plains echoing their inhabitants' lonely sorrow. Miguel, David Illescas, a young man deported by the U.S., attempts to reunite with his long-abandoned kin, one of many lyrical connections revealed in this chilling plunge into a national heart of evil, eventually crosses her path. Despite the lack of words, Hernandez and Illescas' pained yet resolved expressions convey the grief and dread of a people tormented by isolation and need. The film's great formal beauty adds to its diabolical nightmarishness, as Valdez alternates framing his protagonist in spacious landscapes and confining structures to emphasize their lost and trapped state. And, in an astonishing late sequence set to an untranslated reminiscence of an indigenous speaker, the filmmaker depicts a version of demonic violence that is almost unfathomable. Number 1. About Endlessness. About Endlessness is a more sorrowful extension of the inquiries he began with Songs from the Second Floor, 2000, You, the Living, 2007, and A Pigeon Sat on a Branch reflecting on existence. Roy Andersson is cinema's drollest dramatist of the anguished human condition, and it is more of a sorrowful extension of the inquiries he began with Songs from the Second Floor, You, the Living, and A Pigeon Sat on a Branch reflect. The film tackles the question of what awaits us on the other side, and what that means for our current earthly predicaments, with a placid solemnity that is only occasionally relieved by his trademark humor. Grief, longing, regret, guilt, and humiliation are all present in Anderson's meditation on spiritual and literal loneliness, which he achieves using his signature manicured, static aesthetics. An embracing pair soars through the gloomy sky, a vision of togetherness sought by so many, but achieved by so few, high above its many desolate and drifting characters. Anderson doesn't shy away from such sadness, probing his wandering souls with great empathy and inviting us to do the same, and finding, at unexpected moments, little glimmers of hope for relief from the storm. So, how'd you like today's video? Comment down your favorite video. Also tell us which video would you like to see next. We'll make sure you get everything you want at Top Everything. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Top Everything for more interesting videos.